Staff Sergeant Maria Santos walked through the military personnel office with her head held high, but her stomach churned with familiar dread. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as she approached the desk where Sergeant Collins sat reviewing files. She had been through this process 12 times in the past 18 months, each time hoping someone would finally take her combat experience seriously. "Santos, reporting for reassignment review," she said, placing her service record folder on the metal desk. Collins barely glanced up from his computer screen. "Another transfer request? You've been through half the units on this base already." He opened her file with visible annoyance. "Let's see what we have here. 2 tours in Afghanistan, 3 in Iraq, specialized training in explosive ordnance disposal, advanced tactical communications, emergency field medicine." Maria watched his expression change from boredom to confusion as he flipped through the pages. The same thing happened every time. Her record looked impressive on paper, but somehow no commanding officer seemed to believe it was real. "This says you disarmed 17 IEDs during Operation Desert Shield," Collins said, his voice skeptical. "And you performed emergency surgery on 3 wounded soldiers using only a field kit?" "That's correct, Sergeant." "It also says you single-handedly held off an enemy advance for 6 hours while calling in air support coordinates." He looked up at her with obvious doubt. "Santos, these records read like something out of an action movie." Maria had heard variations of this conversation dozens of times. "Every entry has been verified by my commanding officers and witnessed by multiple personnel, Sergeant. The documentation is all there." Collins continued reading, his frown deepening. "Advanced sniper qualification, demolitions expert, fluent in 4 languages, decorated for valor under fire." He closed the folder and leaned back in his chair. "Look, Santos, I don't know what kind of game you're playing here, but these records are clearly exaggerated. No one racks up this kind of experience, especially not someone who looks like they should be working in admin." The familiar sting of dismissal hit Maria's chest. At 5 feet 4 inches with a quiet demeanor, she didn't fit most people's image of a decorated combat veteran. Her youthful appearance and soft-spoken nature seemed to make her achievements invisible to those who preferred their heroes to look the part. "I understand your skepticism, Sergeant, but I assure you every entry in that file is accurate and verifiable." "Right," Collins said, clearly unconvinced. "Well, I've got an opening in the motor pool. It's not glamorous, but it matches your current assignment level." Maria felt her jaw tighten. The motor pool. Again. She had advanced degrees in engineering and tactical operations, had saved countless lives under fire, and had received commendations from generals, yet somehow she kept getting assigned to change oil and rotate tires. "With respect, Sergeant, I believe my qualifications warrant a position more aligned with my experience and training." Collins shuffled her papers dismissively. "Your experience looks good on paper, Santos, but paper doesn't tell the whole story. I'm recommending you for motor pool duty. Take it or request another transfer and start this whole process over again." As Maria left the office with her reassignment papers, she wondered if she would ever find a commanding officer willing to look past appearances and see what she was actually capable of. The motor pool assignment felt like another dead end, another waste of her skills and experience. 3 days later, she reported to Motor Pool Sergeant First Class Williams, a gruff man in his 50s who barely acknowledged her arrival. "Santos, right? Collins says you're another paper tiger with delusions of grandeur. Well, this ain't the place for glory seekers. You'll be working on routine maintenance and, maybe, if you prove you can handle a wrench without hurting yourself, we'll let you work on the bigger vehicles." Maria nodded and accepted her assignment without complaint. She had learned that arguing only made things worse. Instead, she threw herself into the work with the same precision and dedication she had applied to defusing bombs in combat zones. Within a week, she had diagnosed and repaired 3 vehicles that other mechanics had written off as total losses. "How did you figure out what was wrong with that Humvee?" asked Specialist Jackson, watching Maria emerge from under the hood of a vehicle that had been declared unrepairable. The symptoms suggested a cascading electrical failure starting from the main harness, Maria explained, wiping grease from her hands.
I've seen similar damage patterns from IED blast effects on vehicle electronics. The repair sequence is basically the same. Jackson stared at her. IED blast effects? You mean like from combat? Maria realized she had said too much. Just theoretical knowledge from training manuals. But Jackson wasn't buying it. Santos, that was some seriously advanced diagnostic work. Where did you really learn to do that? Before Maria could answer, the sound of screeching tires and shouting voices interrupted their conversation. Through the motor pool fence, they could see smoke rising from the direction of the main gate. An emergency siren began wailing across the base. "Attention all personnel," came the announcement over the loudspeaker system. "We have a security incident at the main gate. All non-essential personnel report to designated safe areas immediately." "This is not a drill." Williams emerged from the office, his face grim. "Jackson, Santos, secure the motor pool and get ready to lock down. Sounds like we might have some kind of attack happening." Maria's combat instincts immediately kicked in. The smoke pattern, the emergency response timing, the way the sirens were spaced, it all suggested a coordinated assault designed to probe base defenses. Her mind automatically began calculating response strategies and potential weak points in their current position. "Sergeant Williams," she said, her voice taking on a tone of authority that surprised everyone including herself, "that smoke pattern suggests a diversionary tactic. If this is a real attack, they'll likely probe for secondary entry points while our security forces are focused on the main gate." Williams looked at her with confusion. "Santos, what the hell are you talking about? The east perimeter fence line runs directly adjacent to our position here. If I were planning an infiltration, I would use the main gate incident as a distraction while sending a smaller team to breach the fence near high-value targets like the motor pool where they could access vehicles and equipment." "How could you possibly know that?" Williams demanded. Before Maria could answer, the sound of metal being cut came from the direction of the east fence. She was already moving toward her toolkit when the first armed figure appeared through a hole in the chain link. "Get down!" Maria shouted, but Williams and Jackson were frozen in shock. The intruder raised his weapon toward the paralyzed mechanics, but Maria was already in motion. Years of combat experience took over as she rolled behind a Humvee, grabbing a heavy wrench from her toolbox. Her mind automatically calculated angles, distances, and timing with the precision of someone who had faced life-and-death situations dozens of times. The attacker's attention was focused on Williams and Jackson when Maria emerged from cover. Her thrown wrench struck him in the temple with surgical precision, dropping him instantly. She was already moving toward his fallen weapon when two more figures appeared through the fence breach. "Williams, Jackson, get to cover now," she commanded, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed under fire. The two remaining attackers opened fire, but Maria was no longer where they expected to find her. She had positioned herself behind the engine block of a nearby truck, using the solid metal as effective cover while she assessed their positions and equipment. "Looks like coordinated assault team, probably 4 to 6 members total," she called out to Williams, who was crouched behind a tool cabinet with Jackson. "These two are carrying standard assault rifles with limited ammunition. They're not wearing body armor, which suggests they're counting on speed and surprise rather than sustained engagement." Williams stared at her in amazement. "Santos, how do you know all this?" "Because I've seen this exact tactical pattern before," Maria replied, then immediately realized she had revealed more than she intended. One of the attackers was attempting to flank their position while his partner provided covering fire. Maria recognized the maneuver and knew she had perhaps 30 seconds before they would have clear shots at Williams and Jackson's hiding spot. She looked around the motor pool and quickly formulated a plan using the equipment and vehicles available. The fuel pump station, the hydraulic lift, several barrels of engine oil, and the electrical panel all could be used to create tactical advantages if she moved fast enough. "Williams, on my signal, I need you to activate the hydraulic lift," she called out. "Jackson, when I say go, I want you to hit the main electrical breaker for this section." "What the hell are you planning?" Williams shouted back. "Trust me," Maria said, and something in her voice made both men nod despite their confusion.
Maria waited until the flanking attacker was in exactly the right position, then gave the signal. Williams activated the hydraulic lift, which raised a Humvee into the air with a loud mechanical whir. The sudden noise and movement caught both attackers' attention, causing them to focus their fire on the moving vehicle.
In that moment of distraction, Maria sprinted toward the electrical panel. Jackson hit the breaker as instructed, plunging the motor pool into relative darkness. Maria used the confusion to reach the fallen weapon of the first attacker. Now armed and operating in an environment she understood perfectly, Maria felt the familiar calm that had carried her through countless combat situations. The two remaining attackers were well trained, but they were operating with incomplete intelligence and no backup plan for resistance. Maria used the raised Humvee as mobile cover, staying beneath it as she maneuvered for better positions. Her movements were fluid and practiced, every step calculated to maintain tactical advantage while closing distance on her targets. The first attacker realized what was happening just as Maria emerged from an unexpected angle. Her combat training took over completely: controlled breathing, smooth trigger pull, precise targeting. The engagement lasted less than 10 seconds. As the immediate threat ended, Maria's radio crackled to life with base security frequencies. She listened to the reports and realized this had been a coordinated attack on multiple points around the base perimeter. Her quick thinking had likely prevented the motor pool from being compromised, which would have given the attackers access to vehicles and heavy equipment. "Santos," Williams said, his voice filled with awe and confusion, "what in the hell just happened here?" Maria looked around at the scene: 3 neutralized attackers, no casualties among base personnel, and critical equipment secured. It was exactly the kind of outcome she had achieved dozens of times in combat zones, but she had never expected to demonstrate those skills in a motor pool on an American military base. "I guess my training kicked in," she said quietly. Jackson was staring at her with obvious amazement. "Training? Santos, that wasn't training. That was combat experience. Real combat experience." Before Maria could respond, the sound of approaching vehicles indicated that base security forces were arriving to assess the situation. As she prepared to explain what had happened, Maria realized that for the first time in months, her actions spoke louder than the words in her personnel file. Within minutes, the motor pool was swarming with military police, security personnel, and medical teams. Williams and Jackson were giving statements about what they had witnessed, their descriptions growing more animated with each retelling. She knew exactly what was going to happen, Williams kept saying. Like she had seen this exact situation before. And the way she moved, the way she handled that weapon, that wasn't basic training, that was serious combat experience. Captain Rodriguez from base security approached Maria as she was securing the captured weapons according to protocol. "Sergeant Santos, I need to get your account of what happened here." Maria provided a clear, factual report of the events, but she could see the captain's expression changing as she spoke. Her knowledge of tactical patterns, weapons systems, and emergency response procedures was far more detailed than would be expected from someone assigned to motor pool duty. "Santos, your personnel file is being reviewed by my office for security clearance purposes," Captain Rodriguez said. "But, off the record, where did you learn to assess and respond to coordinated assault tactics?" Maria hesitated. "My service record should contain all relevant training and experience information, sir." "Your service record," the captain said slowly, "is apparently more extensive than anyone realized. I'm going to recommend that you be reassigned pending a complete review of your qualifications." As the cleanup continued around them, Maria found herself hoping that maybe, finally, someone in a position of authority would take the time to actually read and understand what she was capable of. The attack had been terrible, but it had also given her a chance to demonstrate skills that no amount of paperwork seemed able to convey. Williams approached her as she prepared to leave with the security team. "Santos, I owe you an apology. I've been in the military for 23 years, and what I saw you do today was professional-grade combat operations. Whatever your real story is, it's clear that someone made a serious mistake putting you in the motor pool." That evening, Maria sat in her quarters writing her incident report. She documented everything that had happened, but she knew the real significance wasn't in what she had done, it was in who had witnessed it.
For the first time since her transfer to this base, people had seen her demonstrate the skills that filled her service record. As she finished her report, Maria allowed herself a small hope that tomorrow might bring a different kind of assignment review. Maybe someone would finally take the time to understand that her combat records weren't exaggerated, they were simply the documented history of a soldier who had never looked the part but had always done the job. Captain Thomas Mitchell had been reviewing personnel files for 3 hours when the security incident report landed on his desk. As the newly assigned base operations commander, he was still familiarizing himself with the capabilities and records of soldiers under his command. The motor pool attack had caught everyone's attention, but it was the response that intrigued him most. He opened Staff Sergeant Maria Santos's file and immediately understood why previous commanders had struggled with her assignments. The record read like a compilation of multiple exceptional soldiers rather than the service history of one person. Advanced combat certifications, specialized training in multiple fields, commendations from theater commanders, documented heroic actions under fire, it was almost too comprehensive to believe. But Captain Mitchell had spent 15 years in special operations before taking this command position. He had worked with soldiers whose records looked similarly impressive, and he knew the difference between inflated paperwork and genuine capability. The incident report from the motor pool attack suggested that Santos's records might be more accurate than anyone had realized. Martinez, he called to his aide, I need you to pull the complete service jacket for Staff Sergeant Maria Santos, including all classified sections and theater command evaluations. 20 minutes later, Martinez returned with a folder that was considerably thicker than the standard personnel file. Sir, her complete record required security clearance verification. There are sections here that weren't included in her regular assignment file. Captain Mitchell opened the classified sections and felt his eyebrows rise. Combat actions in classified operations, specialized training with elite units, commendations from general officers for actions that couldn't be publicly documented. Santos wasn't just an experienced soldier, she was a decorated special operations veteran whose achievements had been compartmentalized for security reasons. How the hell did she end up in the motor pool, he muttered. Martinez checked his notes. According to the assignment history, previous commanders found her regular record difficult to verify and assigned her to positions that matched her apparent experience level rather than her documented qualifications. Captain Mitchell shook his head in disbelief. Santos had been systematically underutilized because her real capabilities were too exceptional for anyone to believe. Meanwhile, her classified achievements, the ones that would have immediately explained her skills, had been filed separately and weren't accessible to standard personnel reviewers. I want to see her in my office in 30 minutes, he decided. And, Martinez, I want you to set up a meeting with Colonel Hayes. If Santos is who this record says she is, we've been wasting one of our most valuable assets. When Maria knocked on Captain Mitchell's office door 30 minutes later, she had no idea what to expect. Another skeptical commander, another assignment to prove herself, another cycle of having her record dismissed as exaggerated. Staff Sergeant Santos reporting as ordered, sir. Captain Mitchell gestured to the chair across from his desk. Please sit, Sergeant. I've been reviewing your complete service record, and I need to understand how someone with your qualifications ended up changing oil in the motor pool. Maria braced herself for another round of disbelief. Sir, my assignment history has been somewhat challenging due to administrative issues with my record verification. Administrative issues, Captain Mitchell repeated, looking at the classified sections of her file. Santos, did you know that your complete record wasn't available to previous assignment officers? Maria looked confused. Sir, I'm not sure I understand. Captain Mitchell turned his computer screen so she could see the personnel database. Your standard file shows impressive but questionable achievements. But your complete record, including classified sections, shows that you're a decorated special operations veteran with advanced certifications in multiple combat specialties. Maria stared at the screen in shock. She had never seen her complete record assembled in one file. Sir, I wasn't aware that my record had been compartmentalized. Compartmentalized and, apparently forgotten, Captain Mitchell said grimly. According to this, you served with the 75th Ranger Regiment, completed specialized training with the Special Forces Qualification Course, and received commendations for classified operations in 3 different theaters. Maria felt a mix of relief and frustration.
Yes, sir. Some of my service involved classified operations that required security compartmentalization.
And, because those sections weren't available to regular personnel officers, they assumed your other achievements were exaggerated. Captain Mitchell closed the file and looked directly at her.
Santos, I've read reports from general officers who describe you as one of the most capable soldiers they've ever commanded. How did we let you sit in the motor pool for 8 months?
For the first time in months, Maria felt like someone was actually seeing her complete record rather than making assumptions based on appearances. Sir, I've learned not to argue with assignment decisions. I just try to do my job well regardless of what that job is. Captain Mitchell appreciated her professionalism, but he was also frustrated by the waste of talent and resources.
Santos, I'm going to be direct with you.
This base needs soldiers with your capabilities in appropriate positions. I'm prepared to offer you a choice of assignments that actually match your qualifications. Maria felt her heart rate increase.
Sir, what kind of assignments?
First option is our base security and emergency response team.
Given what happened yesterday, it's clear we need someone with your tactical assessment abilities.
Second option is our training division, where you could develop specialized programs based on your combat experience.
Third option is a recommendation for assignment to the Regional Special Operations Support Unit.
Maria stared at him, hardly believing what she was hearing. These were the kinds of assignments she had hoped for when she first transferred to this base. Sir, any of those positions would be an honor.
May I ask which you would recommend? Captain Mitchell smiled. Actually, I'd like you to consider a fourth option.
I need a deputy operations officer who can handle security, training, and special mission coordination. Someone who understands both combat operations and administrative requirements. Someone who has proven they can make critical decisions under pressure. The offer was beyond anything Maria had imagined possible. A staff position with real responsibility and the authority to match her experience. Sir, I would be very interested in that position.
Good. But, before we make it official, I want you to understand something.
This position will require you to work with officers and senior enlisted personnel who may initially question your qualifications. Your previous experience with assignment challenges suggests that your appearance and demeanor don't match what people expect from your record.
Maria nodded.
Sir, I've learned to let my work speak for itself.
That's exactly the attitude I need, Captain Mitchell said.
But, I also want you to know that in this position, you'll have my full support and the authority to implement decisions based on your expertise. No more having your knowledge dismissed or overlooked. As Maria left the captain's office with her new assignment orders, she felt like she was finally being given the opportunity to use her training and experience properly. For the first time in months, she was looking forward to reporting to work. 2 days later, Maria reported to her new office in the Base Operations Center. Her first assignment was to review and upgrade the base security protocols in light of the recent attack. As she studied the current procedures, she immediately identified several vulnerabilities that the attackers had likely observed during their planning phase.
Lieutenant Johnson, the previous deputy operations officer who was transitioning out, briefed her on current operations.
The security review is your first priority, but, honestly, most of the staff think the attack was just random.
They're not really expecting major changes.
Maria reviewed the incident reports and security camera footage from the attack. What she saw confirmed her initial assessment. This had been a coordinated probe designed to test response capabilities and identify weaknesses for future exploitation. Lieutenant, this wasn't random, she said, pointing to specific elements in the footage. Look at the timing intervals, the coordination between entry points, and the equipment they were carrying.
This was a professional assessment operation. Lieutenant Johnson studied the footage more carefully.
You're right. I didn't notice those patterns before. What do you think they were really after? Maria pointed to several locations on the base map.
They tested response times from security forces, identified blind spots in our surveillance coverage, and probed our communications protocols. They weren't trying to capture the base, they were gathering intelligence for a future operation. The implications were serious enough that Maria immediately briefed Captain Mitchell on her findings. Within hours, the base was implementing enhanced security measures based on her recommendations. Santos, Captain Mitchell said after reviewing her security assessment, "This level of tactical analysis is exactly why you needed to be in a position where your expertise could be utilized properly." Over the following weeks, Maria found herself coordinating with federal security agencies, developing enhanced training protocols, and working directly with senior staff officers on strategic planning. Her experience with special operations gave her insights into potential threats that others missed, while her practical combat experience allowed her to develop realistic training scenarios. The transformation in how she was perceived by other personnel was remarkable. Instead of being dismissed as someone whose record didn't match her appearance, she was increasingly recognized as someone whose expertise was invaluable for base operations. Major Williams from the intelligence section sought her out for consultation on threat assessment patterns. "Santos, your background gives you a perspective on enemy tactics that our analysts appreciate. Would you be willing to review some regional threat intelligence?" Colonel Hayes, the base commander, began including her in senior staff meetings where her insights into operational security and tactical planning proved consistently valuable. "Santos has identified vulnerabilities and developed countermeasures that significantly enhance our defensive posture," he noted in her performance evaluation. But the real validation came when Maria received a call from her former commander in the special operations community. "Santos, I've been hearing remarkable things about your work at your current assignment," General Morrison said during their phone conversation. "Captain Mitchell spoke with me about your contributions to base security and operations planning." Maria felt a surge of pride. General Morrison had been one of the few commanders who had always recognized her capabilities without question. "Sir, I'm finally in a position where I can use my training and experience appropriately." "That's exactly what I wanted to hear," General Morrison replied. "I'm calling because I have an opportunity that might interest you. We're developing a new training program for special operations personnel, and we need someone with your combination of operational experience and instructional capabilities." The opportunity was significant, a chance to work with elite units and help develop the next generation of special operations soldiers. But Maria realized she was genuinely happy with her current position and the respect she had finally earned from her colleagues. "Sir, I'm honored by the opportunity, but I believe I can make a valuable contribution in my current assignment," Maria said. General Morrison laughed. "I was hoping you'd say that. The fact that you found a command that recognizes your value means they're smart enough to deserve keeping you." After the call ended, Maria reflected on how dramatically her situation had changed. The same skills and experience that had been dismissed for months were now sought after and respected. The only difference was that she was finally working for someone who had taken the time to understand her complete record. Captain Mitchell stopped by her office that afternoon. "Santos, I've been reviewing the monthly operational reports, and I wanted you to know that base security effectiveness has improved 30% since you took over the security review process." Maria felt genuine satisfaction in the recognition. "Sir, it feels good to finally be able to contribute at the level I was trained for." "About that," Captain Mitchell said, "I've been discussing your performance with Colonel Hayes and higher command. Your work here has been exceptional, but we think you're ready for additional responsibilities." Maria looked up with interest. "What kind of additional responsibilities, sir? How would you feel about taking the lead on developing security protocols for 3 other bases in this region? It would mean travel, working with different command structures, and essentially becoming our regional expert on tactical security assessment." The offer represented another significant step forward in her career. More importantly, it was recognition that her expertise was valuable enough to share across multiple installations. "Sir, I would be very interested in that opportunity." As Maria prepared for her expanded role, she thought about the journey that had brought her to this point. Months of having her record dismissed and her capabilities overlooked had been frustrating, but it had also taught her the value of persistence and professionalism.
Now, finally, working in a position that matched her qualifications and, for commanders who recognized her expertise, Maria felt like she was exactly where she belonged. Her combat records were no longer dismissed, they were the foundation for meaningful contributions to military operations and the safety of her fellow soldiers. 6 months after Captain Mitchell had discovered Maria's complete service record, she found herself standing in the Pentagon briefing room addressing a panel of senior military officials. The regional security protocols she had developed were being considered for implementation across multiple military installations, and her expertise was now recognized at the highest levels of command. Staff Sergeant Santos, General Patterson said from the head of the conference table, "Your tactical assessment methodologies have identified vulnerabilities that our conventional security reviews missed entirely. Can you explain how your approach differs from standard procedures?" Maria stood confidently before the assembled officers, feeling completely comfortable in an environment that would have intimidated her months earlier. "Sir, conventional security assessments focus primarily on known threat patterns and established protocols. My approach incorporates adaptive threat analysis based on actual combat experience with enemy tactical evolution." She moved to the presentation screen and highlighted several key points from her security evaluation system. Combat experience teaches you that enemies constantly adapt their methods based on observed defensive responses. Static security measures become predictable, which creates exploitable patterns. Colonel Reed from Base Security Operations leaned forward with interest. "Santos, your assessment identified 17 critical vulnerabilities across our test installations that standard reviews had classified as secure. How were these oversights possible?" "Sir, standard reviews evaluate security measures against known protocols and documented threat scenarios. But real-world enemies don't limit themselves to documented scenarios. They observe, adapt, and exploit assumptions about what constitutes adequate security." General Patterson nodded approvingly. "Your background in special operations gives you insight into enemy thinking patterns that traditional security assessments lack." "Yes, sir. When you've operated behind enemy lines, you learn to think like someone trying to infiltrate secure positions. That perspective allows me to identify potential attack vectors that might not be obvious to conventional analysis." Major General Harrison, who had been quietly reviewing Maria's recommendations, looked up from his notes. "Santos, implementing your protocols would require significant resource allocation and training adjustments. Are you confident that the security improvements justify these investments?" Maria had anticipated this question and was prepared with comprehensive data. "Sir, cost-benefit analysis shows that implementing these protocols prevents an estimated 85% of potential security breaches at approximately 12% of the cost of responding to successful attacks." She displayed detailed charts showing projected savings in personnel, equipment, and operational security that would result from proactive measures versus reactive responses. Additionally, these protocols enhance overall operational effectiveness by reducing security-related disruptions to mission activities. General Patterson smiled. "Santos, when Captain Mitchell first contacted me about your capabilities, I was skeptical that one soldier could have such significant impact on security operations. Your results speak for themselves." After the briefing concluded and Maria received approval for nationwide implementation of her protocols, General Patterson asked her to remain for a private conversation. "Santos, I've reviewed your complete service record, including sections that required special clearance access. Your achievements in special operations were classified for good reasons, but they also meant that most commanders never understood your actual capabilities." Maria nodded. "Yes, sir. The compartmentalization was necessary for operational security, but it created assignment challenges when I transitioned to regular units." "That's exactly what I wanted to discuss," General Patterson said. "Your current position utilizes your expertise effectively, but I believe you're ready for greater responsibilities. How would you feel about a commission to officer rank?" Maria felt her heart skip. An officer commission would represent the ultimate recognition of her capabilities and experience. "Sir, I would be honored to serve as an officer. The commission would come with assignment to develop and lead a new Special Operations Support Division," General Patterson continued. Your combination of field experience and analytical capabilities makes you uniquely qualified to bridge the gap between tactical operations and strategic planning. The opportunity was extraordinary, but Maria wanted to ensure she understood the full scope.
Sir, what would be the primary mission of this division? Intelligence analysis, threat assessment, and tactical protocol development for special operations units.
Essentially, you would be doing what you've accomplished at the regional level, but focused on supporting our most elite military operations. Maria realized this was the career opportunity she had never imagined possible. Recognition not just of her experience, but of her ability to contribute at the highest levels of military planning and operations.
Sir, I accept the commission and the assignment. 3 months later, 2nd Lieutenant Maria Santos walked into her new office at Special Operations Command Headquarters.
Her team included intelligence analysts, tactical planning specialists, and communications experts who would work together to enhance the effectiveness and security of special operations missions. Her first major assignment was reviewing protocols for a classified operation in a region where conventional intelligence had failed to provide adequate tactical preparation. As Maria studied the mission parameters and available intelligence, she immediately recognized patterns that reminded her of operations she had participated in during her enlisted service. "The intelligence assessment is incomplete," she told Colonel Morrison during their planning meeting. "The terrain analysis doesn't account for seasonal variations that will affect approach routes, and the enemy capability assessment underestimates their adaptive response patterns." Colonel Morrison had worked with Maria during her enlisted service and trusted her judgment completely.
"What additional intelligence do you need?"
"I need updated reconnaissance focusing on infrastructure changes over the past 6 months, local population movement patterns, and analysis of enemy response to similar operations in adjacent regions," Maria replied. Within days, Maria's team had assembled a comprehensive intelligence package that revealed significant complications with the original mission planning. Enemy forces had adapted their defensive positions based on previous special operations activities in the region, and the planned approach routes had been compromised by recent infrastructure changes. "Santos, your analysis prevented what could have been a catastrophic mission failure," Colonel Morrison said after reviewing her team's findings.
"How did you identify these issues so quickly?"
"Sir, field experience teaches you to question assumptions and look for patterns that intelligence summaries might miss.
When you've operated in similar environments, you develop instincts about what information is critical for mission success."
The success of Maria's analytical work led to her team being assigned to review protocols for increasingly sensitive operations. Her ability to identify tactical vulnerabilities and develop countermeasures became recognized throughout the special operations community. General Torres, commander of Special Operations Command, called Maria to his office after her team had successfully supported 3 major operations without casualties or mission compromises. "Santos, your division has achieved the kind of operational success rate that exceeds our most optimistic projections," he said. "Your approach to threat analysis and tactical planning is setting new standards for special operations support." Maria felt genuine pride in her team's accomplishments. "Sir, having experienced these operations from the field perspective helps us identify factors that traditional analysis might overlook." "That's exactly why this division has been so successful," General Torres agreed. "Your background gives you credibility with operational personnel and analytical skills that enhance mission effectiveness." General Torres paused and looked directly at her.
"Santos, I'm recommending you for promotion to First Lieutenant and assignment as Deputy Director of Special Operations Intelligence Analysis.
It's a position that will put you at the center of our most critical mission planning." The promotion represented recognition that Maria's expertise was valued at the highest levels of military command. More importantly, it meant she would be directly involved in ensuring the safety and success of soldiers engaged in the most dangerous military operations. "Sir, I'm honored by your confidence and ready for the increased responsibilities." As Maria prepared for her new role, she reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought her from the motor pool to the Pentagon. The same combat records that had been dismissed as exaggerated were now the foundation for protecting and enhancing the most elite military operations in the world. Her phone rang, and she saw it was a call from Captain Mitchell, her former commander who had first recognized her potential. "Lieutenant Santos," he said, and Maria could hear the pride in his voice, "I wanted to congratulate you on your promotion. When I first reviewed your record, I knew we were wasting exceptional talent, but I never imagined you'd rise to this level so quickly. Sir, your willingness to look beyond appearances and actually read my complete record made all the difference.
You gave me the opportunity to prove what I was capable of.
Santos, you proved what you were capable of the day you defended the motor pool." "I just made sure the right people noticed," Captain Mitchell replied. "Your success validates something I've always believed: great soldiers come in all forms, but their capabilities are only as good as their commander's willingness to recognize them." After the call ended, Maria looked around her office at Special Operations Command Headquarters. The walls displayed commendations from successful missions her team had supported, photographs from operations she had participated in during her enlisted service, and planning materials for future assignments that would help protect American soldiers in combat zones around the world. The combat records that had once been dismissed as too impressive to be real were now the credentials that made her one of the most respected analytical officers in special operations. Her experience had taught her that true recognition comes not from fitting expectations, but from consistently demonstrating competence regardless of how others initially perceive your capabilities. Maria opened her computer and began reviewing intelligence for her team's next assignment. Somewhere in a combat zone, special operations soldiers would soon be depending on her analysis to keep them safe and help them accomplish their mission successfully. It was exactly the kind of responsibility she had always been prepared to handle. She had just needed commanders who were willing to let her prove it. The same qualities that had made her an exceptional combat soldier, attention to detail, ability to assess complex situations under pressure, and dedication to the safety of her fellow soldiers, now made her an exceptional officer whose expertise protected and enhanced the most critical military operations.
Her combat records were no longer dismissed.
They were the foundation for a career dedicated to ensuring that other soldiers would have the intelligence, planning, and tactical support they needed to accomplish their missions and return home safely. For Maria Santos, there could be no higher purpose or greater validation of her years of service and sacrifice.